Welcome to another episode of That's Right with Chris Voss. And I am Chris Voss, as it turns out. And today we have with us, for this episode, remotely, digitally, coming in from a secret location that we cannot reveal otherwise, the great Shanyn Stewart. Shanyn, welcome to That's Right.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the trouble to make this connection today, because I know that we've got a lot of things going on. So, to jump right into it, is it a ridiculous idea for you to share with our viewers a little bit about your business and your journey?
Definitely. I am the founder and president of Advanced Accounting. So we are a full service tax firm. However, we specialize in our helping our clients save the least amount or pay the least amount legally possible on their taxes. And then we defend them when the IRS unfortunately comes knocking. So I spent the last 30 years actually doing IRS representation work and defending people from all walks of life, mostly business owners, against anything that the IRS has tried to bring against them. I didn't start that way though. I actually started not in finance, but in faith. I'm a former American Baptist pastor. And so that really shaped my background and how I approach every single relationship I have with my clients today. So it's not just about crunching numbers. It's about really helping people face what is really their main concern and their main fear, be it financial ruin or an IRS audit. And so just utilizing those kind of skills that I have from my faith and also from negotiation to actually leave them in a better place.
It's David versus Goliath, right? The fearsome IRS, the dragon.
Definitely. Yes, the IRS is, I always say them a dragon slayer. And so they're waiting oftentimes just to kind of take advantage of the most vulnerable in our society.
Shannon the Dragon Slayer. All right, beautiful. I love it. What are then, I know you've alluded to it a little bit, but the common challenges that your clients face?
Many of my clients feel cornered. They've worked hard to build something real. They blood, sweat, and tears go into building their businesses. And so many times, they'll come to me with a letter from the IRS and that's been keeping them up at night. Oftentimes those letters are not even opened. They'll come to me with piles of them, or I'll say, can you please upload those so I can view them? And they're like, well, I have to open them. And so they have that much fear around the IRS. And oftentimes, they don't even understand that they're paying too much in taxes. I can almost guarantee that whenever a business owner comes to me that they are overpaying in taxes because the professional that they're working with doesn't understand the IRS code and all the nuances of it. But at the end of the day, it's really what gets to the very bottom of it is the fact that it's fear. They're dealing with the fear of losing everything that they built, the fear of the unknown, the fear of not understanding a system that actually governs their financial life. And so that oftentimes they just kind of bury their head in the sand and don't actually face anything of this nature, head on.
Yeah, so a lot of accountants are afraid of the IRS, and you're inspired by standing up for people against them.
Definitely, I hate bullies. Probably because I was bullied when I was growing up. And so I grew up in the Midwest and I kind of was bullied. And now I've spent my adult life making sure that those that are bullied have fair representation.
Yeah, good for you. That's a great mission. As you're dealing with your clients, what strategies do you use to understand them better and also to let them know that you understand them?
Yeah, I don't start with the numbers. First of all, numbers don't lie, but I really feel like I need to start with listening. I talk, words matter, language matters, there's life and death in our words. And so, I usually start with a question, it sounds like this is keeping you up at night. And as the moment I say that, it almost kind of melts away the facade that many individuals have. And it opens up this space where they feel safe enough to actually be able to tell the truth. And once I understand what they're really afraid of, Usually, they're afraid of that dragon. And once we can identify what they're afraid of, then we can actually start to craft a strategy that speaks not only to the financial side of the equation, but also to the emotional side of the equation. Because if we don't take care of the emotional side often, we repeat the pattern that we find them in. That's either not avoiding the IRS and not paying attention to their tax liabilities, or being so scared of the IRS that they're not utilizing the IRS code fully.
Right. Yeah, wow. And that's a great label too. It sounds like this is keeping you up at night. That's beautiful. What other strategies do you use then to connect with them?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things is that when we look at language, right, we look at how they're posturing themselves. So one of the things that, I when I deal with like the IRS and I deal with an IRS agent or an IRS officer, what I'm looking for there is I'm looking for things of, I statements or aggressive language or control tactics that we can actually start to kind of frame a situation differently, and help it be a win-win. This is not all about win-lose, but how can it be a win-win? And oftentimes that means giving up simple wins to the IRS so that we can get we can kind of sometimes we lose the battle to win the war.
You said looking for I statements?
I am.
What's an I statement sound like and what does that tell you?
So an I statement sounds like, so I'll give you an example. I was dealing with a agent recently and he's like, I demand that you come into my office. I demand, yes, I understand that it's a 3-hour drive, but I'm going to demand that you come into my office and I'm going to demand your client be with you. And when I explained that the client would not be coming with me, that I was actually representing the client, he again said, I will subpoena the client if you can't answer all of the questions. So basically, what that said to me was that he was feeling that he needed to be in a position of power, that maybe he felt disrespected somewhere along the line, either in his personal life or his professional life, and that he was under pressure probably to actually get a win and probably answer to someone above him. And so it really meant that he really wasn't in control, that he needed to be perceived as being in control.
Right. So that in that context, it's an indicator of insecurity. It's an indicator of pressure, feeling out of control. And then now you have sort of the algorithm to the emotions of the other side so that you can ultimately construct a better settlement.
Exactly. And then once I actually got into the meeting, and I oftentimes when you show up, and this is as me as a woman, oftentimes the IRS expects us to show up in this masculine energy. So I knew in dealing with him, kind of feeling some of his insecurities, that I really needed to show up in my feminine energy. And so I didn't come there like ready to battle. I didn't have my sword out ready to brandish it. Basically what I did is I showed up, and I before I even got there preparing the case, I saw a couple of wins that I could give them so that it would put us in a position where he felt like he got what he needed in the negotiation, and so that I could actually walk away with a bigger win for the client. And so showing up, I really try to kind of steer him into humanizing the client, not just a number on a piece of paper, but letting him see that the client, hey, this is a good guy from the Midwest. He's a farmer. He was relying on a CPA. And when he really started to posture and try to kind of get that aggressive language and those control tactics, I really fell back into something that you teach called, how am I supposed to do that? How's the client supposed to do that, Mr. IRS agent? How am I supposed to do that? And basically, what that did was put me into a position to be able to bring him into creating the solution for the client. And we actually kind of we reframed the whole case. And the client owed $3.5 million, and he technically owed the money. It wasn't an IRS mistake. We actually settled for a little over 300,000 at the end of the day.
Wow. Tactical empathy, creating the how question creates collaboration. It forces empathy from the other side, causes collaboration, gives the other side the illusion of control. You're working all the magic of tactical empathy there.
It's been a game changer.
So the that's right moment. That's right is when you make people feel heard and understood, when you summarize back for them how they see things. It tends to be a game changer, a triggering moment. Collaboration follows. Seems to me like you may have a story about a that's right moment.
I do. So, and actually, it was the same audit. So, this audit, when an audit starts, normally audits can take a number of years. And this was one of the quickest audits I ever went through. It was only 9 months, but we were and I was in a face-to-face situation with him. We were in this little tiny room, almost like a cell. It just had a desk and a light, and it was like he was doing everything he could to try to intimidate me. And we were in this conversation, and he really believed, I understood that he thought that there was criminal activity here, and he wanted to be able to escalate this. But we were in the conversation, and I just really kind of started to posture it. I understood what he was trying and alluding to. And so I said, it seems like you've got pressure from above to recover these funds, especially in a large audit case like this. You probably deal with people every single day that dodge responsibility. And it really sounds like you need to have confidence that this case is worth pursuing and that this is either criminal or tax evasion. And he started to nod a little bit. We started to get that mirroring because we had spent so much time together. He was kind of we were trying to, when he would actually nod, I would nod. And so I was trying to get that mirroring to start to, kind of happening there.
Right.
And once I saw him start to kind of like almost soften and kind of his body language kind of change and he kind of leaned back a little bit, I said, and what I'm hearing is that if I can show you that my client acted in good faith, that they had a trusted professional, and that they didn't intentionally misrepresent anything, this really becomes less of a win for you, doesn't it? It really becomes a drain on your time. And as soon as I said that to him, I said, it really becomes a drain on your time, right? And I saw him almost kind of lean back into his chair and he like nodded and he said, that's right. And it was at that moment that I realized that we took a turn. We took a turn and we were around the corner and we were going to able to actually kind of push it to settlement very, very quickly. He no longer saw the client as an adversary. I think he really he saw him as a human being. He saw me as a human being, not someone who was there to fight him. And I think that was the moment that kind of changed everything, was just getting him to that's right moment.
Yeah, well done. Turning point. You went from being adversary to collaboration. All right, so Shannon, if people want to learn more about you, they want to know how to work with you, how to learn from you, how to be helped by you, how do they connect with you? How do they find you?
Yes, I actually have two websites. So I have advancedaccounting.com and then my personal branded website, shannonstewart.com, where I do business negotiations. And they can reach out there.
All right, Shannon, you've been wonderful today. And thank you for all the good work. And thank you for representing people that really need your help.
Thank you.